Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Breaking the Block, where we talk about writer's block, if you believe in it, and all things that might keep us from being creative. So, I am going to let my co host introduce themselves and tell us about what they do and how they're doing. And we'll start with Mama Maggie and go to Rach, Skye, Jenna, and Nicole.
Hello, lovelies. Mama Maggie Ward here, independent author, stroke survivor, and migraine sufferer. And I have lots of books. Starting off with The Huntsman's Honor, the Huntsman of Adama's prequel for the massive Relic of Time War series that is coming up on book 9 for that series. So if you like, visit my Amazon page listed below, or if you can't afford a Kindle or Amazon, I keep all my rough drafts for free on my Inkit page because I understand times are tight. And Rachel.
I'm Rachel D. Adams, or Rach if you just want to call me that. I'm an author and an author tuber, and I also have a blog about what I do and how I do it. I have 2 series going on at the same time because we decided to write a prequel series out of nowhere. And it's called the Dragon Tasker series, about a dejected dragon shifter who works for an organization that's out to kill him. So on to Nicole.
I thought that was nuts. It doesn't matter. Okay. Hey y'all, I'm Nicole. Also as Luna in the writer community. I write dark poetry and fantasy. I am the creator of Shadows of Abyss, a collection of dark poetry. I am the co-creator of Enchanting Tales Publishing. My channel on YouTube is Luna's Mystical Lights. I also help run the Writing Sisters with my sister, Lauren.
Hey there, everybody. My name is Jenna O'Malley. I'm your soul writer, author of sci-fi fantasy with dashes of romance and nerdy references. Alongside the raw healing stories my characters weave throughout time and space, I help other soul bards to get their books and their bookish business back on track when trauma and life play foul. So also I run Soul Bard Academy, which is the entity we do that through. And the Myrna Annals comes to Kickstarter again, 7/8/2024. Thank you all for being here, and I'm going to pass it on to Skye.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Skye. I'm a fantasy author who typically writes paranormal romance under the name SD Hegyes, and I'm just here because these lovely ladies invited me, and I'm just here to have a good time. I write and do things, and I don't know what else to talk about, so yay!
All right, awesome, y'all. For those of you who may not know me, I am Writer Sam Wicker. I am an author tuber and author of fantasy with tons of romance. Most of it is spicy. And yeah, you can catch my books up on Ream. The link should be down below, as well as all of my co-host links, I do believe. Pretty sure. If not, I'll rectify it in a little while. But let's go ahead. Let's get into a question, shall we? Let's do this one because it seems appropriate for the week that we've kind of all been having. Do you write best when emotions are high or when it's calm? Anybody want to jump in?
The writing is what tends to make me emotional, but I like to write funny scenes. I like to write dramatic scenes. If I can't make my readers cry at least once during my book or make them laugh out loud, then I have failed as a writer. So as much as my emotions fuel my writing, I feel like that my writing also fuels my emotions.
Gotcha.
I feel like it helps when you're writing poetry. You're able to tap into that emotion you're trying to convey while you're writing the poem. Something you're like trying to do for like something that's like sorrow or remorse.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
I've said since I was in high school that writing is therapy for a reason. It depends on what I'm writing. I very much agree with Nicole. When I'm really upset, I tend to just go into poetry. Just that's what it brain dumps as automatically for me most times. But I don't know, Bjorn, what kind of mood am I in when I write you? Because you a jerk. Just saying. Like, I'm trying to think. Some of my characters are just jerks. Maybe on those days I leaned into them more? Question mark. Like, if I needed a secondary character to say something.
Bjorn is a jerk. He needs a chew bone or something. He needs something to chew on besides everyone around him.
Yeah.
It's okay. He has 13 kids eventually. He'll be fine. He'll be well occupied.
Oh, so he gets punished.
Yeah, I'm with Jenna. I love the emotions of a moment flowing into my writing. This past week, I had a lot going on, and so I got a lot done because I was just like, oh, well, I'm in this mood, so I'm just going to put it on paper now and see where it goes. And as to the jerks, it's usually when I'm in a annoyed mood with something, and it's my way of getting it out of my head. So I write somebody that makes sense. Usually Kieran Whalen is the one that I default to when it comes to that.
I can see that.
Also a big wolf.
I agree on the point that the writing usually tends to become therapy. I don't do poetry, guys. I'm sorry. Not my thing. But at the same time, I could tell like when my moods are getting worse because all of a sudden I start writing and it's just instantly better. I don't know why. It's just magic that way.
I tend to, before I found the magic of medication to help with my depression, whenever my depression was really, really high, like a 10 out of 1 through 10, I wrote some of my best work. I mean, I wouldn't even have to go back and edit it. I mean, it was just kind of chef's kiss kind of thing. But now that I'm level, I guess, there are times where it's like I have to push myself in order to write. So it's almost like I need my emotions to be high in order to write. But at the same time, it's not a good quality of life. And therefore, I don't write as much if my emotions are high, if that makes sense.
I've always wondered about that because I'm one of the holdouts. I haven't gone to see a therapist. My PCP has been really awesome with me to work with me when it comes to things like this. But I've often wondered what would happen to my characters' voices if I change too much as far as my brain chemistry is concerned.
I stopped writing for a long time because I was on medication for my PTSD, and I didn't start writing again until 2020 kind of caused me to not be able to get a refill, and I had to come off of it. So you got to be very careful with how certain medications play with your body, because just because it works, like, for example, if you take a legit like serotonin based antidepressant, it might be great for you, but for me, they give me anxiety attacks, so they had to take me off of them. So be very careful.
You have to figure out where the balance is for you. And we're all here because we love writing. We're writers. We love writing. I know that for a time, because I am a slow cycle bipolar, and and when I was growing up, I would have a manic that would last 3 or 4 months, and then I would slope down over 5 to 6 months into a depression that would last 3 or 4 months. And they tried me on different kinds of medications, and it tended to make because of I also am hypomanic and have OCD, it tended to make my world gray.
Oh,
It leveled me out, but the thing is you need to ask yourself is, what is the better balance for your mental health, your creativity? We all love writing, but if being in a place that is harming to you, but you can write, versus being in a place where you are managing, coping, living life, not depressed or self-harming, but you can't write. It's a great struggle. And all through history, you can go back hundreds of years. They have documentations of creatives who have had struggles with mental health and medicating versus not medicating and how they treat things. I mean, okay, The Starry Night, Vincent van Gogh's most famous painting. Yep. Everyone knows that painting. He was in a mental hospital when he painted that painting. Mm-hmm. People don't know that. He was in a mental hospital because he was drinking, he was doing opium and other things, and literally he realized I am on the verge of killing myself. So his brother puts him in a mental health hospital, and he was still painting, but he came up with some of the most beautiful things when he wasn't self-medicating. And so as creatives, there is the eternal struggle between mental health balance and our art. And
you might only need I'm sorry to interrupt. You might only need the treatment for a little bit just to get you back on track, depending on what you have and how your body systems all respond to the meds too.
Yeah,
that's what I've noticed.
Growing up, I only did treatment when I was on the bottom, and not for every down phase. I set myself up with rules to do, and it's like one of those things you have to be willful enough to get out of bed, breathe in and out all day long, do your task in this order. And that's not something everyone can do. And fortunately, OCD goal brain makes me do things according to the list. But it's the balance between the creative life and the mental health life is one that every artist, every author, every musician has to find for themselves, because you don't want to be the one that, oh, it's so sad they died so young, or they died before they finished their great work. And we're not going to solve that here today, other than encourage people to do what you feel is best for your creativity and your mental health balance.
Exactly. And this is why I'm glad. This is why I'm glad a lot of like Eastern Asian blend of medicines coming in. Do your yoga, but also take your meds. And I'm like, actually, that makes more sense to me than not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are tools out there for you to reach for and to use if you need them. Otherwise, if you find therapy through writing, find therapy through yoga, or whatever it is that you do, then do that until you find
go
yourself.
Outside and sit by your beehive.
Yeah, there you go.
Take your dog for a walk.
Yeah, garden a little bit. But yeah, there are different medications out there. You talk with your doctor to find the one that works for you and works well with your body and your body chemistry. But otherwise, if writing is your gig or painting, then yeah, that's the best therapy. Andy joined us. Hello, hello, hello. All right. So anybody have any problems that they want to talk over? Are y'all having any blocks this week?
I am.
Go ahead, Nicole.
So I mentioned in one of Jenna's friends that I started working on a new novella where the main character is blind, and I hesitate in rewriting the first chapter because it's like that double-edged sword. It's like being blind myself, I know how I want to see it, but then at the same time, not sure how to show it on the page.
Hey, Dee. So with that one, because y'all know I've had problems starting the epic, which is my actual book baby, other than the other ones that I have planned. And that's just fear. I know it's just fear, because those characters are, like I say, my babies. They are the ones that have been with me the longest. So is it coming from fear of writing it by yourself, or is it just because you haven't found that good starting sentence, that starting point?
I think it's just a starting point. So it's based off a mod I actually played in game. Well, I have the story in my head. I know how to do it. But then it's like, how do I show this character without showing like visual aspects that most people have in their stories?
Okay, so you want to are you meaning that you want to have the character like in a non-visual world where you're describing things from a non-visual perspective?
Yes.
Okay. That would be a thing of you would literally have to lean into the other senses, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of touch, the sense of hearing. I grew up with a partially sighted mother and a miserly father. So literally as a child, I learned that as soon as the sun went down, the lights went off, and because we're not wasting that electricity. And I learned to walk through the house like completely dark. And it's still to this day, I will walk through our house, no lights on at all. And my husband is like, how do you do that? But it's like one of the things that literally you have this map in your mind of where all the furniture is. Mm-hmm. And it's like you feel where that furniture is. Of course, if somebody pulls out a chair and you don't know it, your toe is going to pay for that.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, you know that life.
Yeah.
So what you'll have to do is lean away, just don't go for, do not use the visual cues. And it's so temptation, because in writerly things, I mean, they always say show don't tell, right. But the whole reason we're writers is to show you our world. Mm-hmm. But there are other ways to show the world. There are other senses, like in Red Velvet and in Enemies, in the whole Pagosa Cliff series. Whenever you walk into Millie's Bakery, the sight of the bakery is not what you see. The first thing you get every time you walk into the bakery is, what do you smell? What is the smell, and how strong is the smell, and can you taste it? That's what I think. If you're writing a non-sighted person, don't go for the sighted cues, because the other thing is, and I'm going to point this out because it's a peeve of mine for someone to say, oh, well, this character has this disability, and then they completely ignore that disability as the character goes through the book. You can't have a character that is deaf and yet they hear things around them, because they don't. They feel things, they feel the vibrations of things, but they don't hear things.
Unless you identify what the continuum is to the amount of they're unable to do that sense, you can't play on it. And some of us, like she was saying, we do it without thinking. Mm-hmm. We're just brain dumping, and this is where
sensitivity readers.
Yeah, sensitivity readers, beta readers. editors, point out if I step out of what you think as a reader interrupts this condition for this character. And I don't think that has to apply to just a disability, i.e., if you have a character who swears off, say they're celibate, for example, you really need to make sure if they have a naughty thought, they're like, no, bad, to back it up, unless they're recovering from the thing. When you asked your question, I'm kind of reminded of the older woman character from Nausicaa, Ghibli. And there's only one time in the whole movie she asks the children at the end, tell me what you see. If you drop that once or twice at just crucial moments, the power of somebody else's dialogue will lean you into showing it while someone's telling it. Does that make sense? Because as cinema therapy says, if you can get someone to do it in a paragraph, do it in a paragraph if that's the shortest. If they can say it in 3 words, that's the shortest. If you can have Vision pick up Nilnir, you know all about him and he didn't say a word. And that's the easiest way to do it. Do it. So if dialogue's going to be your vehicle, use it at least once or twice, but use it sparingly.
When I wrote Christian Evansworth, he's blind, and I had to come from a place of my grandmother, how she saw the world but not saw the world. So the way I did it was I really, really focused on the setting, where he was, who was around him, and those senses that he could figure out. His sense of smell, his hearing. He really, really the hearing part, because he's a vampire, really, really shined through. And I believe it came. I mean, it's not in any published work yet, but I believe that that's how I did it. The entire introduction of his point of view was through what he heard, how people were saying things, their tone of voice and how they were saying things, and the sense around him, because it was almost a park-like area. So there was birds, there were crickets because it was going into twilight, and the breeze on his face and things like that. So it was a lot of emotion that was symbolic almost, because it was being described by his other senses, because we're so used to sight that we sometimes forget how our other senses play a part in our emotion.
Did that help?
It does. It's hard transferring to when you're used to writing, having visual scenery, all that. It's hard to switch it off while you're writing it. That's all,
Maybe,
I believe that you're going to be the best person to do that. Sorry, Jenna, go ahead.
No, I was going to say pretty much the same thing. So,
all right. So, anybody else up here on screen dealing with a block that you want to talk about?
I was going to ask Skye how her 7-day writing novel challenge is going.
Yeah.
It's going good. I restarted on a story, and I was fully prepared today to come and say I have a problem, but honestly, I fixed it last night, so I don't.
Well, you want to share what the problem was and how you fixed it, and maybe that can help somebody that's rewatching this or.
So it was one of those cases where I was looking at it, I was like, I know there's something wrong with this, but I don't know what, and I had to take a step back. And because this is a part of a writing challenge, I was I was mad at myself for not going forward with it. But when I finally forced myself to take a step back and take a look at it, I realized that there was things going on in the story that just didn't make sense. And I actually talked about it in my live stream yesterday, because that was when part of the epiphany occurred. I had a story taking place during the winter solstice, and yet these characters were at a construction site, an active construction site. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. It's the middle of winter. There's 3 feet of snow on the ground. They're not going to be doing construction outside. Not where I live, at least. And once I realized that I had that conflicting interest going on, it did help snowball other things that I was making realizations on, of things that just couldn't occur based on the time period. Because it's summer here, my mind was stuck in it's warm outside, even though the story took place during the winter. And that's one of the things I'm having to keep reminding myself of, is that this story takes place during the winter. I have to act like it's winter and keep in mind wintry things.
So your story has seasonal affective disorder?
Yes, it does. Very much does. Or me. One of the two.
So let's see. I'm going to offer up a couple of mine. Like I said, I've got the fear of starting the epic. And when I finally started it, I realized that I didn't have a set time frame in mind. These characters, like one of the main characters is 2,334 years old. So he has a huge span of time where we can start this. But the other main character, she's only about, 400 years old. And she's like the one that's going to follow through the whole series, not necessarily him. So my block was trying to figure out where to start the story. One, because I know the 90s. I love the 90s. Not everybody knows the 90s. Not everybody loved the 90s. But yeah, and I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. And this is the reason why I love writing just complete fantasy, because I don't have to base it in any time frame. But yeah, that might be another thing that somebody out there is facing, because especially those that write fantasy or urban fantasy or something like that.
So I had something like that. Since you're one of my readers, and I guess this may have come from having beta readers that are like lots of ages. So I've got one of them is one of the newer generations, and they were completely lost on why Gabriel wouldn't say anything about his sexuality. Why he was so repressed if he was famous or, out there normally anyway, and everything. And I had to explain the 90s, right. The 80s and 90s, because he grew up during that time frame. Now he's an adult, but he's still, in the closet, or he, at least for the first 2 books, he's in the closet. Yeah. So
thank you, millennials, for smashing that ceiling. Just saying.
Yes, it's great. And that was part of the reason we wanted to write them this way, because we had so many friends that were just kind of like stuck. And it's just that's a legit thing. It took me a long time to figure out, well, do I upgrade? Not upgrade. What's the word? Move the entire timeline up, or do I just leave it where? But it really would take away from the character if you did that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, like I feel like a lot of people have that problem with figuring out what time period, what genre your book should be in. It's based off of what you're comfortable writing, what you know, and also what would fit the characters you're writing for as well.
Research.
Yeah.
As an editor and a coach, all I tell you to do sometimes is research, because I don't know.
Yeah,
seriously, that's what I tell people. If you don't know it, look it up, because someone will slam you for it if you don't know it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, they'll put in your place.
The
but the thing-
prequels were in the 1800s, so I had to do a lot of research back then.
Yeah.
Well, the other problem is that the people that have these super modern, like the millennials forward attitudes, will, if you write something historic, like, okay, the vampire's dragon, Cineas and I can't remember his name. Sebastian.
Okay.
Cineas and Seb. That's how okay. There's a lot of people who would be like, why were they hiding what they were? Why would they go out and someone would and with their friend and pretend that she was one of their dates? And it's like, well, in this time period, first of all, they're a dragon and a vampire, so they've already got a death sentence hanging over their head. They're warlords. Wanted. So they are both on Crimson's most wanted non-human list. And but the other thing is just the fact that they had this relationship means that they had an extra layer of target painted on them. Mm-hmm. And there are some people who are like, well, you shouldn't write it like that, it's oppressive, it's this and that. No, it's the reality of the time. And the reality of the time is they could not be together in public, period. And it had nothing to do with their species and everything to do with their gender. And so that's one thing that it's really interesting that I've seen like some things that like claim to be like historical romance and stuff like this, or like a sapphic historical romance. And it's like, you realize that these two women would never have kissed in public.
Mm-hmm. Roommates. They're roommates.
They're companions. And it's like, and there's a lot of like really young readers that are just starting to get into romance genres and stuff like this. And they besides, they have no comprehension about how hard it was for previous LGBTQA generations to just survive. Mm-hmm. I mean, I in my Pagosa Cliff series, there's the scene where, okay, the old Sheriff Ray, who was sheriff for like 60 years, everyone in Pagosa Cliffs thinks that he fell in love with this when he worked for Wells Fargo as a security agent, that he fell in love with this little China girl who then went home to marry for an arranged marriage. And that's why his heart was broken. And he never married again. He never dated. Well, the real story was more complex than that. He fell in love with a man who was a Qinglu, like a geisha. And then he went home to get married. And instead of getting married, he killed himself, and Ray went after him. He was like, I don't care. I need him. I love him. And he went out there. And by the time he got there, Guangxi had already jumped to his death rather than marry. And Ray came back a broken man. But they had to hide that literally for that entire generation, because that was the pre-World War II and then Third World War II and then up to modern times generations, where that, he would never have been able to be the sheriff of a rural Colorado county if anyone had knew. Mm-hmm. And then because the great grandson, who was taking over the veterinary practice of Ray's brother, Cornell, he came out as gay to his family. And I write about how he struggled with, he supposedly has all the benefits of being a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy from a well-off family. But because he's a gay cowboy, that's an automatic second-class citizen stamp on him. And the fact that he brought his boyfriend and eventually husband back home to run the family veterinary practice after veterinary school, that was a thing in the story about, people disparaging even today. because of attitudes that have existed for literally hundreds of years. And it's very interesting that this shift of attitudes, because if you go back to the Roman Empire, back to the Greek city-states, all the way back, ancient Egypt, you can go back thousands of years. And even in the Jewish culture, homosexual relationships were normal. There were just people that were married to men. There were just people that were married, women that were married to women. Did they have children? Yes, that was expected. That was a thing. But you could also have your true love and have a spouse. And this was a normalized thing. I mean, you can go back and look at the Theban warriors. This is something that is talked about in Greek history, is the Theban warriors, and how there were these men that were couples that, because they weren't going to have children, they literally dedicated themselves to the military and would fight, and that was their life. And I have this in Spartan Chimera. I have a two-father couple that are raising one of their nieces, and it's back then that was normal. Back then that was not something that was thrown off. But then you have the rise of Christianity and this backlash against the Roman lifestyle, particularly Corinth. And then we end up with literally 1700 years, 17 centuries where gay bad. And this is something that as writers, we're having to address in our tropes, especially if you're writing historical, that what was once normal, then became taboo, is now becoming accepted again. But there is this war about how much acceptance this is. And I support a group. I'm a part of, and I donate and I support a group called Gays Against Groomers, because there is this mentality that's been put forth that all homosexual people are pedophiles grooming children to be molested, and that is not true at all. First of all,
that was literally why my older brother was not allowed around me when I was a kid.
I don't know anyone. I literally, of all of the gay and lesbian friends I've had my entire life, I don't know any of them that were pedophiles. If anything, I know more straight pedophiles than I know homosexual ones. But there is this mentality. But then there is that part of that community. I mean, sadly, pedophiles exist in all levels of community everywhere. And so it's very difficult to write historical fiction accurately in a way that millennials and younger will see it and realize, oh crap, that they could have been killed and no one would even have investigated. Mm-hmm. They could have been murdered in their home and no one would have even investigated because they were those kind of people.
Yep.
So it's all about the research and the historical perspective.
And don't go by Google.
No. No.
Don't go by Google. Somebody recently tried to compare their Google search to my library level special collections research I do on the history stuff for my series. And literally I said, clearly you are not my intended reader, and left it at that. So seriously, you can start at Google to get some names and some dates. Mm. If you're going to use Google, at least use Google Scholar to research this stuff. It'll at least spit out the .edu, .org, actual stuff from people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Consider Google your digital card catalog, not your source.
Exactly. Bingo. Yep. Though, I'm going to be really honest, as a former English teacher, no one has a clue what a card catalog is.
I know. I just completely aged myself there.
That being said, I have one of the newer generations for my kiddos, and our library does still use the card catalog. So I was actually teaching them how to use the card catalog the other day, and I was so proud of them because they figured it out. I was like, yes, proud mama moment.
I worked at 4 schools where I had the unfortunate trauma of watching them uninstall them. Yes. And I'm like, if only I had the $100 to buy the actual like wooden drawer system, because the organization.
See, our school, the librarian refused to take out the card catalog because we do have power outages, so you can't like use the. And
Yep.
so, but she made all of the kids learn how to find the Dewey Decimal System and how to use that. And it's like, I'm like, that's a lost art.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. I saw one in an antique shop and I almost cried over it. And I'm like, really?
I would so want to buy that. I'd be like, hey, I need money. Let me set up an account so that we can go get this.
Go fund
Oh
me.
my, seriously, you just started like a book box type situation, organizing all the stickers, and you could just pull out what you needed. That's what I would want it for.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely need it because, I mean, y'all see the chaos over here. So.
It's insane. And but you know, the flip side of that is also you can push it too far and you make it look like you're justifying that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I know that my editor right now, the reason that my next Pagosa Cliffs has not come out is because she is struggling with a book that was published like a decade ago. And it's this historic romance set during the colonial time, the United States colonial time. And while it is very historically accurate, and as a beta reader and sensitivity reader, I can now tell you that I could walk around colonial England or colonial Americas, know exactly where I was and exactly where I was going, and find myself from point A to point B. It is that accurate. However, the tropey, he does do respect to some of the earlier Pataqua, Algonquin, and tribal cultures. However, this toxic white man attitude about all of the chieftains being drunks and all of the squaws being promiscuous, while yes, women had their own autonomy and could choose who they wanted for a partner. And this idea that in that time period, the trappers and fur traders would have their squaw friends and then have a nice white wife at home goes through that book. Unfortunately, a lot of the language now and just these toxic native tropes that didn't really exist are all through the book. They're all sprinkled through the book. And that's the bias of history that is recorded from that time, unfortunately. But I'm like, good luck with the rewrites on this. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of problems if he tries to publish it now. Because he's trying to do the relaunch of it, and I'm like,
yeah, all the love, Mm-mm.
I mean,
yeah.
Think about the cartoons we all grew up with that now you can't have them shown anywhere. How people would react to them.
And that's going to happen. Anything you put out, people are going to react to.
Yeah.
I got jumped on for having an age gap romance between a semi-immortal and a human that had been changed into a semi-immortal. And I was like, but you have to understand that when they first met in the timeline, she was time traveling and literally, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, they were the same age when they met. He was a father with 2 boys, and she was a widow who had just lost her 2 sons. And so they were the same age when they met. But because she was jumping through time, by the time they were reunited, he was like 3,500 years older. So that happens to the age gap. And they were like, oh, age gaps are so cringy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's like a 30-year-old marrying a 50-year-old. But they both met when they were 25. So.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
something
going to
that's
run into
mentioned.
that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. That was something that was mentioned to me because anytime you're dealing with very old creatures, you've got to come up with a way of explaining it. With my dragons, they tend to have kindred bonds with their loves, and they tend to age with them. Like they have enough of a bond that their human body will actually age with the other character. And somebody had pointed out that I've got Gabriel meeting and having a crush on Phineas when Gabriel is only 17. And I'm like, yeah, and Phineas stayed away and didn't want anything to do with him at all until, well, he really didn't want to have anything to do with him at all there for most of the story.
Be honest.
Yeah, he didn't. He was like, until after he's 29 is when this story actually starts up again, is their story starts. So I was like, that's definitely something that people have issue with, that we would never, or at least I never thought about it, coming from reading Anne Rice and some of the other Christopher Golden, even some of the stuff in fantasy, Lord of the Rings and everything else. It's like, well, they may be that way. They may be thousands of years apart, but the maturity level and just because a dragon's 1,000 years doesn't mean he's 1,000 years old in human maturity.
Right.
He is definitely not. If you read Phineas, you know that. So yeah, that was something that kind of stuck. I had a block on that for a while because I did have like 2 different people come to me about it and was like, that doesn't, that's kind of hinky. Are you sure you want to put that in there? And I'm like, again, if I took it out, I think it would change the way that the characters interacted with each other. And it also, in book 3, is brought up even more as something that has kept them apart rather than together all this time, because Phineas has let humanity dictate things about him instead of remembering who he is all this time. So I had to really, really do a deep dive, because that was one of my blocks was, do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I change it? That'll mean redoing the first book. What do I do?
Yeah. For the longest, oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
For the longest, with my epic, because Andy is so old, he's a 2000 plus whatever, he found a child in a village that he destroyed. And he took the child for his. But then the child grew up and she was like, I don't want you to be daddy anymore, kind of thing. And then grooming became an issue. It's always been an issue, but it became more into the light. And it's like, I really need to change this. Because I don't want to paint Andy in a bad light, because he's actually one of the good guys. I mean, he's had issues, he may or may not have been Jack the Ripper, but, it just, that in of itself kind of threw a wrench in it too. And it's like, how do I change this to where they still have that bond? And Dylan, his son, is still created, because Dylan plays a big part. So it's like, okay, Dylan's just going to be somebody else's kid. And,
Dylan could be another foundling.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Andy's not too keen on changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an issue. It's like, and this is one thing that I actually in Relic of Time Wars I have to deal with, because the Ethereans and the humans are intermarrying. They have been for many generations, like thousands and thousands of years. Karstein actually ends up with a quarter human son who like lives for 1,000 years, and his children live for like 200 years. So it's kind of like from the Lord of the Rings, Aragon. It's kind of that thing where they are longer lifed than normal humans, but they still age and die. And so there's that thing. And because there's a couple of characters that are human characters that are dating Ethereans. Two of them actually have a discussion about what is it going to be like, when our husbands still look like hot 20-somethings and we're like decrepit 90-year-olds. What is this going to be like, and, the one, she's like, my children could live for 1,000 years. Are they even going to remember me a decade after my death? And this is the struggle they face of, I'm dating someone. How do you become okay marrying someone that will live longer than your civilization existed? Because people that are half or quarter Etherean can live 4,000 or 5,000 years. People that are full Etherean can live like 11,000 years. So how do you become okay with, you're both adults, but how do you become okay with marrying someone, loving someone who will live longer than the pyramids have existed? So that's an issue. And it's been very interesting, because there's a place where Karstein, he says this often. He says, immortality sucks. I've lost more friends to old age than I've lost to war. And that's an immense statement. And there's the character Daisy, who was hidden as a human to keep her safe. She grows up a normal human life until she's like 26, 27 years old. And then she gets mortally wounded. They put her in a healing sarcophagus for the 3,000 year trip back to Etheria. And the healing sarcophagus removes all her human DNA. And she wakes up as an Etherean, because she had mostly Etherean DNA, but it had been enchanted to hide what she really was. So, and she says, like, through the whole series, she's like, I wish I had never been changed. Being immortal sucks, because she is leaving her family behind. Mm-hmm. Like she is going to have to watch all of her family grow old and die. And their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. And it's, there was a character, I can't remember her name. She was one of Anne Rice's characters, but was the servant of Queen Nefertiti, and she kept her family lineage alive all the way down until there was only one person left. Thousands of years of just guarding this one, her lifeline, until there was one left, and then her granddaughter was made into a vampire. And it's like, how do you become okay with not only like being married to someone who will outlive, but if you're one of these immortals and you're loving a human, and we get this much time. My life is this long, I get this much time with the person that I love. And it has become this thing in Etherean culture, as that when they were living on Terra Earth, and then later after the harvest of Terra Earth, they have this mentality of, we are grateful for the time we are given, because like in this kind of supernatural age gap thing, the immortals, the semi-immortals, have to be okay with the time that they're given, because they know it's this much in the span of their lifetime.
Mhm.
And that's something you see in Cineas. Cineas is very jaded about all the people who have died.
Yeah. A show that you can watch that kind of deals with someone being 1,000 years old and having to deal with mortals is Frieren. After Journey's End, yeah, it's an anime, but it is gorgeous and it deals with this topic very well, I feel, because it shows the emotion or lack thereof that an immortal has, and having to teach oneself to actually care about things and not be jaded. But
I'm gonna be
oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna also age myself again and say Highlander.
I was thinking the same thing.
The, Who Wants to Live Forever?
Yeah.
That song, I've got that on my playlist because that is one of the songs that just really helps with that. And to this comment, yeah, it depends on the author how they want to do their work. Sometimes that goes in with the tropes that they're writing, that they do it this way and they've got a specific audience in mind when they do it this way. I come from again, Anne Rice and also the Highlander series was one of my favorites. I actually still have the VHS copies. So it's a matter of
I have the DVDs.
oh, so yeah, the idea that when I said like Cineas, sometimes he shows his maturity level and stuff like that. It's not that he hasn't learned. It's not that he doesn't have the experience. It's just that he the way the dragons are would be, I guess, where he's at. He presents himself like a 40, 50-year-old human in his shifted form. And he's been through the ringer. He's lost people. He's lost loves. He's lost children. And it wasn't just because of the species. It was other things. So, yeah, that is kind of a pet peeve, but at the same time, I understand why they write it because they're writing to a specific audience.
Yeah.
So another thing that you could do with tackling something with like the dragon shifters, maybe their age in one form. Okay, so as an example, I tell everyone that I am 34 years old, but I'm a level 20 writer. I've been writing for like 20 years. You could do the same thing with your shifters. In their dragon form, they may be hundreds of years old, but in their human form, maybe they are like a 17-year-old kid. And so they're going to have that mentality of a 17-year-old kid when they're human, but when they are a dragon, they're going to have that hundreds of years experience. Mm-hmm. That is another way you could tackle something like that with the ancient beings.
That's an interesting way of doing it. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And kind of contextualizing the whole do you want to live forever thing. It doesn't just affect romantic relationships. Ian has in book 4 someone who's very dear to, I know some of you are reading, I'm trying not to give you spoilers. Ian has someone very dear to him come back in book 4 and he has the option to invite them. Do you want to be my first turnling? And they're like, no. I've been with you guys long enough to see what you go through. No. And writing that felt, I said, I know I'm going to get flack for this because people are going to want to see these two people back together. But the character was emphatic and said, this is not my style. This is not who I am. So yeah, it can not just affect their romantic relationships, but like if their best friend from childhood, all of a sudden it's like, why did you age and not me? Starts being a thing. Mm-hmm. Those conversations come up, and it's almost even to me more realistic to pin it in those relationships than in a romantic one, especially if you have the whole soulmate, fated mate, star-crossed lover stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but also the mentality too. Like there's some instances like for us, you're hunted with 2 where you have the immortal, your turn or ask my turn someone, and you're like, I wish I could take that back. I regret my choice because no one deserves to have this life. Type reaction.
A reader contextualized it like you're collapsing 100 years into the passing of a year for some of these people when they turn from human to immortal. It's not that time moves faster. Their relationship to time is way different than ours. So yeah, a century might seem like a year to them, a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
I know that one of the things with writing Relic of Time is that my stroke and the fact that I no longer track time, my brain literally just I no longer have a concept of time passing, because there's like part of my brain that's like, oh, my stroke was just like a year or two ago. No, my stroke was 8 years ago.
The 80s were longer
9
than
years
10,
ago.
20 years ago, guys.
I know. And it's so weird though. And it's actually helped me write.
How dare you?
It's actually helped me write this lack of perception of time, because my semi-immortals, they really don't have this. And it's like, it's one thing of, it's like one day Daisy looks at her older foster sister and she's got gray in her hair, and her husband has gray in his beard, and she realizes how old they've gotten, while she, now that she's an Etherean, she has not aged a day. And it's like that is a kind of trauma that it's I think that a lot of people writing immortals, some writers, they just ignore it completely, of like, oh yay, we're immortal, we get to live forever. But like Rach was pointing out, it's that Highlander syndrome. It's, who wants to live forever? Because it would suck.
Mm-hmm. See, mine kind of has it sucks living forever, but at the same time, there's 11 siblings. They're all immortal. And Andy, for one, he's tired of cleaning up after them. He's like, y'all need to die. Y'all need to do something. Y'all need to go away. I need to die. So, and that's where I hope that the comedy will come in my books, is because he's like, God, I've dealt with you for 3,000 years.
Just go away.
Okay, we've had hampers for 400 years. Put your socks in it, not on it.
I dare say, lovelies, you're annoying me again.
Yeah. And he's got one brother, Christian, who has literally holed himself up in the library. He has not come out. And he reads every book that has been thrown at him. But he's like, what is the real word? I don't know what the real word is. I'm going to come back into the library. Thank you. Bye.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Immortals are tough to write. That's period. Just period.
They will make you challenge every human notion you have. That is for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into maybe this question right here. Skye, are you good on time?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
I like Nina's comment about being an immortal in an age of electronic identification.
Yeah.
Serious
something
hate my mortals have to deal with, is because the age of technology has grown so much. They're like, how do we hide ourselves away? And I do like how that is tackled in Patricia Briggs's Mercedes Thompson series, where the werewolves bring themselves forward because technology has developed so much, and they're like, well, we're not gonna be able to hide forever. Let's bring ourselves into the light in a good way so that we're not pictured in a bad way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I like J.R. Ward's vampires being slight vigilantes without intending to. Like, there's a hotline, you can get a hold of them and everything, and I'm like, that's actually really clever.
That's a smart idea.
It is. It really is. But yeah. All right.
Marketing. Just gonna say it now. Marketing, Sam.
What?
We're just gonna all probably say it now. Marketing, Sam.
Marketing. Marketing with formatting close behind.
Yes. Yes. Very much. Very much.
I love formatting. What are you talking about?
Will you format mine if I pay you?
Yes. I love formatting.
We're all looking at Jenna.
Yeah. My worst part is always probably going to be the end. I'm fine with the middle. It's always the end because the end just, I don't know, it tears me apart. It's like, no, I don't want to let you go.
For me, it's the order because we wrote all of this stuff so long ago and everything is in a specific order. But when you translate our stories into books, finding the correct order and making sure that you choose the correct characters that you're going to include versus the characters that you're not going to include, things like that. Oh my gosh. It's been a pain.
Or you
Reem has helped with that.
You start moving things around and one character now dies before they are in scenes later in the book. So you have to backtrack and you have to put in you have to add another character so they can be later, but that's
Yes, we literally did that. Like we had Inya's character has a really funny. I mean, he was good. It was comic relief for us. He has he has disappeared in the books. He will not be in the part of the books, but we wanted to keep a lot of the dialogue and some of the other things that he brings into it. So what we did was we kind of parceled it up between other characters. And I believe that was the biggest challenge for this particular work in progress. It was making sure that things that belonged there. And also, this is the one book where it's the last time we introduce any new characters into this series. So we had to make sure that we chose the correct characters. And we definitely had to do some cutting room floor situations. And the good thing is with Reem, we were able to put some of those stories on Reem for people to see and also for our hearts to be okay with cutting them from the main series.
Yeah, I feel like that's the hardest thing is deciding what to show and what not to show in your books. It's like you want to write every character fully out and show every scene, but that makes a really long book.
well, no, that you do do that, and then you end up with a 1.5 million word series to edit afterwards.
That.
Oh no, I learned this the hard way. The very first book I wrote was 10,000 words and was only like a quarter way done. So I learned that lesson the hard way.
Oh, no. I wrote the entire Relic of Time Wars series. It was like 1.3 million words. And then it's like just slowly been adding, like as I've been writing it, the world has been expanding. The characters have been expanding. And it was just like things I have to add to make other things make sense. But those have to be added like 3 books in the past and has to be threaded back through all of the books between point A and point B. So you have to kind of weave it in because that's one thing I hate. It's just like a pop-up thing. Like
Right.
It's like, I love Star Trek. I've always been a Trekkie, but their pop-up technology things. Oh, I feel that, Devin. I feel that in my soul because I wrote the Guardian's death before I wrote the 4th book. And that death happens in like the 9th book. So yeah, and I one of the books I needed a comic relief scene. Because it was a really tense book, and I needed this comic relief scene. So I moved this scene where they try to destroy Daisy's coffee crop because FYI, after Terra Earth is destroyed, they can't find any place to grow coffee, and that's Daisy's addiction. And they need her to have coffee so that she can win the war. And so they send like some zombies and this Demonosaurus mutated Genosaur to go destroy her coffee crop, and she's like, "Hold my coffee! Don't spill a drop of it." but the person who leads the thing, at this point in the series where I'm moving him to, nobody knows he's been indwelled by a shadow yet. So I have to move the big reveal that it's this indwelled person that has actually gone to attack Daisy, and he doesn't even know he has a shadow yet at this point. So I had to separate and undo things and redo things, because so later on that it's like all she knows is that this swordsman from the Shadow Kingdom brought these things to destroy her coffee crop, and she beat him. And it was this whole thing of after the battle is, why are you covered in blood and where did you put my coffee cup? Because there's only one place on all of the colony planets where coffee will grow. And so it is Tetris for authors. Yep. And especially when you've got the series written out and then you have to move scenes, then you have all of these other story elements that you have to track. And I hate editing. I hate editing so much.
Same. Very same. I'm No Hero was 360 something thousand words before I split it into 2 books. And then the first book became 250,000 words and I had to cut it down. And now it's sitting at 196,000 words. That's as far as I can go. So yeah, it's awesome. So awesome. Editing loves you.
Oh yeah, love editing.
And yes, you need to write the fantasy. Just saying. All right. Anybody else got anything?
I think for me, rewriting is actually the worst part because I love drafting. Drafting is actually my favorite. But rewriting, it's like, I've already told myself this story once. Now you want me to redo it and change things? Why?
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
I like Rita's comment because I totally relate. It's like I am so, my brain wants more from the vampires and then the final book. And I'm in the middle and I'm like, but we have to finish this, Rachel. We have to finish this or the others don't make any sense. And my brain is just like, but the shiny.
I'm going through that right now. Frey's standalone spin-off book literally sets up season 2. And I'm like, you need to know what shenanigans he gets into before he sends his nieces and nephews off to do crazy things. And I'm like,
Frey's middle name should be Shenanigans.
Don't give his wife ideas.
That's also the fun challenge when you're writing with co-authors. A lot of times Lauren will write a scene and before that the person will be injured or time will pass and she's like, you're healed. Like, no, love, like it doesn't work that way. And you're like, I had to always like trying to jump in, like, no. I was like, you have to faint just like in real life, like this doesn't happen in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not in God mode. Even gods get taken care of and taken out and knocked out. Just saying.
This right here.
I completely agree with what Eva just said.
Yep.
What you said?
If only the story could fall out of our brains as fast as it falls into them.
Exactly.
I keep saying we need a machine that like records dreams, which just plucks the thoughts out of our heads and types them on the computer, but no one listens to me. No one
Probably be driven by AI.
I would totally like sell a kidney to get a telepathic typewriter.
Sell an arm, something. Would be perfection. Yes, definitely.
Oh yeah, that's a project I'm not looking forward to. I like all these notebooks of written word, but now I can't see anymore. It's like crap. I'm like, how am I supposed to put you in type form?
Oh, that's a whole other level because I've got a fantasy that's sitting over here in one of those big notebooks that you get from Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I haven't seen it or written it in it for years, but I want to do it now, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
dictation. I think I'm gonna try and figure something out.
There are some, I don't have a printer that does this, but there are some printers that will scan those into documents. But again, is it AI driven? Probably. Is it expensive? Probably.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, my whole bottom row right here. And then there's a box in the shed of stuff that I've written that I need to put into a document. It's like, oh my gosh, why?
Yeah, I feel like between me and Laura, we have like 40 books just staring at us. It's like, type this out.
Not me sitting over here with like a shelf full of notebooks that I have every intention. It is on the project list to digitize them.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the story seeds. Not any stories in here. This is just story seeds.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a scroll, aka document with all our story seeds.
Mhm.
Same.
Yep. Yeah. 53 and counting. Yay.
Yay.
Especially when Lauren sees the cover, she's like, oh, I have no idea. I'm like, no. Put it down.
We need to de-evolve her from the book cover groups.
I had to do that. After buying 30 plus pre-made covers, I have to wean myself off of that habit. But they match the story so well. And
Skye and like 3 other authors I know had a, when I was first starting like writing, and when I was just on Wattpad and Inkit, they were like talking about their cover addiction. And I was like, nope, not gonna sign into any of these groups because nope. I don't Mary had this thing where she was like, she's like, okay, I just bought a trilogy worth of covers for books I don't even know what I'm gonna put them on, but I want them.
That's her. It's like, it's not that's her. So I'm like, what are you gonna do with that? I'll tell something like, no, like put it back.
Write the story first, Lauren.
Feel called out. Feel attacked.
We love you.
Hey, she's
Skye has enough book covers that she could put them. She could create her own like Oracle deck of just book
Oh
covers.
wow!
So you need to find a wheel that does the images, so you can just do the wheel with the images and start writing that.
I'm slowly working on that because I did discover my wheel does do that, actually.
That's a great idea. I was just about to ask if you knew it did that or not.
I'm sure now. What's done for a day? Spin, and it's this one.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, gosh, that's funny. Oh, hi, Jen. Welcome. We're just about to run over to Skye's stream.
Yeah, this is going to be Skye's stream. It's going to start in about 10-ish minutes. So, yeah, we will be here on the 7th because I know the AWC is next weekend and I don't want to overlap with that.
I may or may not be here. I may be on vacation. We shall see.
Okay. All right. It's all good. But yeah, outros. Yes. You want to start, Nicole, and then we'll work around?
Sure. So as always, this is fun. Like I said, my name is Nicole, and off me, I'm known as Luna's Frost. I have a YouTube channel called Luna's Mist of the Lights where I cover magic. And I also help Lauren with her channel, which is The Writing Sisters, where we cover being writers as blind siblings. My poetry collection is called Shadows of Us, and hopefully sometime our first book, Hunted and Merle's Kiss, will be coming out for you guys to reread. So enjoy.
I had someone who would not be quiet. So hello, ma'am. My name is Jenna O'Malley. Thank you very much for joining us today. Do feel welcome to hang out with everybody on screen whenever you can. And I actually operate 2 channels. There's Jenna the Soul Writer, which is where a lot of my stuff about writing processes hang out. And if you want to know more about the psychology, metaphysicology, and esotericness and more for writing and more about my coaching, head over to the Soul Bard Collective, where we're doing Writing to Heal later today and helping you get yourself together a little bit better. Skye.
All right, sorry, I had to find the unmute button. I was like, where'd it go? I switched tabs on realizing it. I was like, oops. I'm Skye. I'm a fantasy author who typically writes paranormal romance under the name SD Hegyes, and my stream is in about 10-ish minutes now, and I'm going to be writing on a collection of short stories that follow 7 sisters as they meet supernatural beings and fall in love as part of a 7-day book challenge. And yeah, other than that, I have nothing. Thank you for having me. Haha.
I'm Rachel D. Adams. If you look me up anywhere else, I write paranormal romance, urban fantasy, and fantasy. I also write author help videos, articles and videos and stuff on Medium and on Substack. So look me up when you can, and thank you for having me. I really enjoy these, and I can't wait for more.
I'm Mama Maggie Ward, independent author, stroke survivor, and migraine sufferer. And I love doing these. I have so much fun with this. I've got books, The Huntsman of Adama's prequel series. They're going to be 99 cents on Amazon next week. So if you're looking for a fantasy read, the prequel to the entire Relic of Time War series will be available. And I am already waiting in Skye's stream for us to finish.
All right, everybody. I am Writer Sam Wicker. Bleh. I don't even know how to talk anymore, so never mind. Anyway, I am Writer Sam Wicker. I am a writer of fantasy with romance and spicy scenes, and we will be doing this hopefully every Sunday after the AWC, unless there's something else that pops up, of course. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me on this endeavor. It's amazing. Y'all are amazing, and I love you. So yeah, we'll see y'all over in Skye stream. Bye.